companies outside of AV are trying to figure this out now because streaming is so prevalent. You're going from prosumer devices to consumer devices like Elgato and all these streaming companies, right? They are like, hey, I think we need a standard.
And we're democratizing something that has long been behind the curtain. It's been the magic. We've been the Wizards of Oz. And now it's time not to be.
The great Oz has spoken. Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Monitoring your AV systems, what a standard means for AV over IP. And Pandora's box has a new owner. All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 739, recorded Friday, October 17th, 2025. The Wizards of AV. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest news and stories in the AV and IT world. We have new collaboration gear, financial health check, and 8K content. Let's get into it. Our top story, Christie Digital has agreed to sell its Pandora's Box and Widget Designer product lines to Tulux GmbH, a German company with deep roots in show control and real-time rendering. The acquisition, expected to close October 31st of this year, returns the well-known media server brand to the engineers who helped develop it more than a decade ago. Pandora's Box has been a cornerstone for live event and broadcast environments, known for its 8K compressed playback, multi-layer compositing, and frame synchronization capabilities. With this purchase, Tulux plans to continue software development and customer support while expanding compatibility with newer hardware. This move follows a pattern across the Pro AV sector where legacy technology divisions are being spun off into specialized firms better suited to innovate quickly. At GITEX this week, Neat has unveiled the Neat Board 32, a 32-inch all-in-one system aimed at huddle rooms, small offices, and hybrid workstations. The device combines a 4K touchscreen, wide-angle camera, and adaptive audio array into a single unit that supports Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and BYOD modes. Neat says the Board 32 bridges the gap between desktop displays and larger meeting room systems, a category growing as companies downsize conference spaces and prioritize small group collaboration. The product can double as a personal monitor via a USB-C cable, and management will be handled through the company's Pulse platform. This marks Neat's first major hardware release since 2023 and reflects the steady demand for compact, frictionless collaboration tools. Industry analysts note that while large format room systems have plateaued, sales of devices under 40 inches grew by nearly 18% last year, an indicator of the continuing hybrid work realignment. The National Systems Contractors Association, NSCA, has published its 2025 financial analysis of the industry, offering a benchmark snapshot of profitability, utilization, and service trends among North American integration firms. This year's report, compiled from 99 companies across 31 states and 3 Canadian provinces, shows gross profit margins rising to 34%, the highest in the study's nearly 30-year history. The share of negotiated or direct award projects has also increased to roughly 72% of total volume, continuing a decade-long move away from low-bid competition. Most notably, recurring revenue now represents the largest portion ever recorded, underscoring the industry's shift toward managed services and predictable income streams. NSCA notes that smaller firms report near capacity utilization, while larger organizations are rebalancing staff after a post-pandemic hiring surge. The association will discuss the findings in a public webinar November 18th. Historically, NSCA's data has been a reliable bellwether, and this year's upward margins suggest a maturing, service-driven AV economy. In a milestone for imaging technology, Chinese astronauts aboard the Tiangong space station have produced the world's first 8K feature-length documentary filmed entirely in orbit. The production, Blue Planet Outside the Window, chronicles daily life during the 6-month mission and showcases the planet from low Earth orbit in ultra-high definition. Engineers adapted lightweight optics and onboard data compression systems to manage 8K 240 megabit streams in microgravity, a leap forward for both broadcast and scientific imaging. The film will premiere in Chinese theaters later this year. Beyond its cinematic appeal, the achievement highlights how space research often pushes audiovisual boundaries that later filter into terrestrial production, like NASA's 4K experiments in the late 2010s, eventually influenced camera stabilization in HDR workflows now common in live events production. And finally, we have AI at ISE. Integrated Systems Europe 2026 has announced Saul Rashidi, the former Chief Analytics Officer for Estee Lauder and Warner Music Group, as its headline keynote speaker. Rashidi's session, The AI Reality Check, What It Takes to Scale and the Future of Leadership, will examine how artificial intelligence can be responsibly integrated into enterprise and creative workflows. The keynote anchors ISE's theme of Push Beyond, encouraging manufacturers and integrators to apply AI not as a novelty, but as a structural element of design and business strategy. Historically, ISE keynote selections have foreshadowed the industry's next focus, from smart buildings in 2019 to sustainability in 2023. Rashida's appointment suggests 2026 will be the year AV fully confronts the challenges of AI governance, data privacy, and cyber security. ISE 2026 opens February 3rd in Barcelona, and AVNation will be there. Organizers are anticipating record attendance following last year's 10% growth. That's your AV news. Stick around for this week's roundtable, where we will discuss AV over IP. This is AV Week. Welcome back. Now we bring in our fantastic roundtable with us to discuss some more news and information we have got this week. First and foremost, from Parts Unknown, Dawn Mead. Welcome, ma'am.
Thanks for having me as usual, Tim. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Also with us is Sharath Abraham. Sharath is from Jabra. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And last but not least, the newest AV living legend. Ladies and gentlemen, from Texas, which doesn't, no state, no country, just Texas itself, Justin Watts. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Good to see you, bud. Good to see you. We have a couple of stories this week. Both of them, when you click on the link that Mitchell puts on the page, they will both feel like advertisements for a specific company. I am not doing this because the articles themselves feel a little advertorial, but they both piqued a question in my head. How about that? First one, AV Network. There's a couple other that we're going to put in there that kind of go along the same lines of AV over IP. This article specifically talks about Dante and the single pane of glass. It's arguing that achieving a true, quote unquote, single pane of glass management interface for AV and IT installations, that all depends fundamentally on the objective of interoperability. Now, this is why we have some really great folks on today. IT, the whole article positions Dante as a keystone platform in that effort. I would disagree with that, but that's because Tim's definition of a standard means that a for-profit organization does not own that standard. There is nothing wrong with that, but that is Tim's definition. Audinate is a for-profit corporation. Folks that own SDVOE, another potential standard, is a for-profit corporation. IPMX is not owned by a for-profit corporation. So when I start talking about standards, that is what I mean. Okay, open standards, I guess I should say. Dawn, I'm just going to start with you on this. From your perspective, how critical is it that all of your systems and all the subsystems, the audio, video control, even lighting to some extent, are on a single unified dashboard?
So there's a couple ways of looking at this question. I know I'm such a big waffler, but there's a couple ways of looking at this question. In an ideal world, it's highly critical. It's wonderful to have that one, single pane of glass, that one dashboard to look at, that one standard to worry about. On the other hand, I live, and probably a lot of our viewers and listeners live, in a world where, despite our best efforts, we're surrounded by 150 billion different ways of doing things. And even if you standardize across a corporation, this one user or this one building or this one site is going to go rogue and do their own thing. And it's very fragmented in the real world. So in an ideal world, I want those things to all be standardized, all be easily accessible in one way. And I want AV to pursue that because I'm now in an environment with very stringent IT and cybersecurity, not sectors, but organizations within my company that have very strong opinions on a lot of things. And so when I'm dealing with them, to be able to come in and say, this is my thing, approve this, and have it cover everything I have to deal with, that's invaluable to me because they're dealing with 150 other things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, I want it to be as simplistic and as unified as possible so I can go to them because they don't understand AV. And now that we're starting to put things on the network with very strict oversight and very strong opinions, again, we have to fill out forms that are not designed for AV. And we have to go through screenings that are not designed for AV. And we have to go through these processes that they're having to modify on the fly for AV. So if I can ask them to do it once to address the AV issue, that's fantastic. If I have to ask them to do it 10,042 times to address AV, man, I'm going to hate you because I'm going to have to sit here at my desk and fill out every one of these forms and every one of these, questionnaires individually 830,000 times. So for me, it's important. It just in the real world, it kind of practically doesn't happen.
Justin, Dawn picks up on a good point there. You and her both work for, let's say, multinational corporations, different ones, but multinational corporations. When you're selecting devices, regardless of what that is, a camera, DSP, whatever, right? How much weight do you give to that whole design for AV and IT versus performance specs or versus brand familiarity? Where is that weight like versus, where, oh yeah, I know this brand, but it's not made for the IT environment, whereas this new one is, but I've never used it before in my life.
So I approach this from a couple of different ways. First off, when it comes to that brand familiarity, that does go a long way, right? And I work for an organization that supplies the AV industry with a lot of parts to do this stuff that we do every day, right? So there is something to that because in my experience, I've had experience with certain vendors that really instill confidence in that delivery, and some that I think could still have some area to grow, right? But let's be honest. From an ecosystem perspective, if you have a lot of the same parts from the same company, it does make things a lot easier when it comes to integration, monitoring all the odds and ends. I would say honestly, since where I work now and things have developed a lot since I've started, I do give more credence to how this device is going to interact in my environment, and then I offer up those options to my users when it comes to those deliverables and let them know that this was a more IT-centric offering. It may not do some of these AV parts and smarts that we see typically in the environment, but it does meet InfoSec requirements. And so that does help out quite often, as Don mentioned, with the InfoSec people. They do like things to be as safe and secure as possible, right? But I think in the end, as it comes to the whole single pane discussion, I focus more on products that are going to act harmoniously in my environment a lot more than I used to. When I first started in the AV industry, I worked for a company. I worked for a division in the company that reported up through facilities, so it was a very different environment back then. We did our own thing. They let us, they let us do our thing. Uncle IT let us do our thing, and that was how it worked. Now, I manage both AV and IT for my company, which means I have to play a good steward in both environments, and so it's definitely one of those things that has gotten a lot more gravitas in my selections since I first started doing this. So is there a simple solution? No, There isn't. I don't disagree with your sentiment, though, that organizations like IEEE that build the lion's share of our IT standards are a non-profit organization. So their goal is just to build what makes the most sense for the environment. But I also see the other point where it may take some dollars to get a push through to build something like a standard, right? There's so many facets to this. But I do resonate with a lot of things that Dawn said. If I have to go back more than 3 or 4 times, I get a knock on my door from the CISO and want to know why I'm bothering his people so much. So,
That's fair.
Although to Justin's point, yes, we are looking nowadays for more IT and environment sensitive products. However, and I'm sure Justin, as a living legend, will agree with me here. We've been around the industry long enough. We know people. And so for us to call up somebody at manufacturer ABC or XYZ that we've dealt with for 15 years and that we trust and that has that brand behind them, we can take some of our gravitas and say, hey, this is who we work for. These are our requirements. I understand you want to force everyone into your ecosystem, but can you give us this? This is what we as your customers need. And if you build this, we will buy, a crap load of them, So I think that there is room for both that brand sensitivity and the environmental and cyber aspect of it. Our manufacturers that are listening just need to listen to us and, make those things for us, please and thank you.
and that's a metric crap load and a standard crap load both. We'll
Yes.
cover both sides
True.
of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah. Well, funny enough, we have a manufacturer on this call. So, Sharad, if we're going to sell a metric ton crap load, here's the thing. Jabra, Sharad works for Jabra. Jabra has a management platform that they have rolled out over the last year or two, I think. You can manage all of Jabra's stuff. I am not aware that you can bring anything else into that yet. But you can bring that environment into other platforms as well, I believe. Is that accurate?
Working on it.
Working on it. Okay.
Yep, that's something.
So yeah, talk about that for a second, and talk to the, both not just Dawn and Justin, but folks who are responsible for these systems, and hearing what they're asking for. How do you get there, or can you get there?
It's one of those subjects I've been advocating for because I've been at Crestron, I've been at AVISPL, and I've been at Accenture. So one of the things I've noticed in all of those roles is the more prominent need for open communication between devices, because every client is different. But if you make or utilize a standard, each client can use it based on their needs. So for example, APIs. I think every single manufacturer needs to have some sort of API available in some function. And I also know managing APIs costs money, data costs money, and I think that is prudent on each manufacturer to say, hey, what can we provide for free? What can we not provide for free? Where operational costs meet in the middle? And then that's how the future is going too, because I'm a big AI proponent, right? So in 10 years from now, there's going to be AI agents, not even 10, maybe 5, AI agents that are going to be the first tier of managing devices, in my opinion. How do those things talk to either cloud-to-cloud system or directly to the device system? So when it comes to interoperability, every manufacturer needs to think about it in some fashion for their portfolio that they're bringing about in the next 5 years, right? You no longer can have just a Crestron only or an Extron only or full on, right? That's, the other part of it is support, right? Because I'm always thinking about customer experience. As an integrator, that means, if there's one standard, you learn about that one standard. It's easy to teach my technicians about the one standard as opposed to each manufacturer separately, because that takes time. Time is not, right? So if we're building systems that are interoperable with each other, as long as you know majority of the interoperability, Then the 20% can be the specialists in each company of that manufacturer, right? So now I'm thinking about people, where interoperability and APIs function, right? Because you can still have a Crestron expert, an Extron expert, an AMD expert, or whatever expert, but now you still need to feed information to what I would say future AI workflows that will take in those considerations. And that's just my point of view, because they're in it. When I went to an AI customer experience, customer support thing where they have this agent, it kind of just blew my mind. Like, okay, things are moving fast.
So let me pull on that for a second, Sharath, because there's a couple of things that you mentioned there, and one is the agent part. Part of what makes the agents today work, and this is an overarching statement by Tim Albright, nothing else, are some of those common standards. And yeah, I'm leaning on that word for a minute. I was in a local trade show here in St. Louis and Kansas City this past week, and I was on a panel. I'm talking about a number of other things, and one of the questions was about AV over IP, and I made this statement, and I made this publicly. I've written about this. This is not anything brand new, but that is this: is my hope, my dream, my desire as a former tech manager that ran around a college here in the St. Louis area, is that eventually the AV industry will come to an agreement on a standard when it comes to AV over IP, much like the IT industry did 30 years ago when it came to information. Because you can go in and you can take a switch off of a shelf and plug it in and plug a cable from God knows where, RJ45 from God knows where, and plug that switch into a switch from another manufacturer, and data will pass. I am simplifying things. Do not throw things at me. But in essence, data will pass. Okay? I long for the day when that happens on AV over IP, because then things like you're talking about, Sharath, can be possible, because we don't have to build an effing agent for 500 or 600 different standards.
But think about it, though. Think about it. What we're doing here in this discussion, you're demonstrating, first off, how it started, right? So when this was created, it was created to solve an IT problem. That's why IEEE built that out, and that's why we have that standard, that protocol, the Ethernet protocol, right? And thank you for not calling it an Ethernet cable. It's not an Ethernet cable. It's a cable that passes the Ethernet protocol. This is my hill.
And
find me later.
On RJ45, I got told that this week, by the way. It was something.
It's an AP8C module.
That's
connector.
the one. That's it, right there. Yeah.
You are all welcome. Congratulations. You're all welcome. So we started trying to solve this problem from an AV perspective. And the AV way to solve problems is to build it our own way every time, right? That's why we have all these standards now. Now, is one of them better than the other one? I mean, they all have their pluses and their minuses. They all do things a baseline certain way, but they all have these different components that fit in, right? We have to evolve. We have to grow in how we pull this out, right? There has to be some unifying force that helps us as an industry get into that evolution mindset, out of the mindset of, this is my box, I plugs it into the wall, and it only talks certain things with the same brand label on the front of it, right? That's just, but that has to happen at some point. There is no growth beyond us keeping the walls up.
Companies outside of AV are trying to figure this out now, because streaming is so prevalent these days, especially like companies like Netflix and Hulu, to just regular people streaming now with their hardware, right? So now you're going from prosumer devices to consumer devices like Elgato and all these streaming companies, right? They are like, hey, I think we need a standard, right? And then, yeah.
And we're democratizing something that has long been behind a curtain.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Right? It's been the magic. We've been the Wizards of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's time not to be. It really is.
And if we don't move, we're going to all, as an industry, end up like my college computer, those good old Packard Bells that only plugged into other Packard Bell pieces, and you couldn't upgrade a single thing without upgrading the whole computer. And the IT world went through all of these growing pains over the past how many decades? But we're older than the IT industry. Technically, AV is older than the IT industry. How is it we are not already doing this? So manufacturers, pay attention, get with it, update, evolve.
I think manufacturers are paying attention. It's just the speed.
It's slow.
Yeah,
Oh, it
It's
is.
slow.
they're paying attention. It's just the velocity is.
It is almost a geological time frame versus another time. It really is, right? I mean, we're moving, but there needs to be a catalyst for change, and it hasn't been the thing yet.
My word isn't good enough. Come on, guys.
I know, right?
No, that's
Exactly.
the thing is, and so really quickly, I have no problem picking on this organization because I've picked on them for 10 years. Justin kind of sort of alluded to it. I don't know if he meant to or not, so I'm not going to try to put words in his head. But the standard that AV tried to do with IEEE was AVB. And God bless it, that's the reason I have a problem with IPMX. And I don't have a problem with IPMX. I am just not sold on it yet because they got to show me a lot more than what they're showing me today. But the problem with AVB is we tried to do it ourselves. We tried to do it through the IEEE and this, that, and the other. And we had some legitimate manufacturers on board who were spending serious amounts of money developing product and serious amounts of money getting that product out into the field and into some really, really cool installations that I know about, but I can't say because I signed a piece of paper that said I can't say it. But holy cow, if they would have let those people say, hey, we did it at XYZ, it would have increased adoption. Totally side note there, right? But the other part is you had a whole lot of infighting amongst the manufacturers who were at that table, who were, again, putting an awful lot of money, a lot of resources, people power, the whole bit. And that just kind of came down to they couldn't get out of their own damn way, right? Now, AVB is still a thing. It's primarily audio at this point. Somebody can tell me I'm wrong, but there's no video left in AVB. But I hope for IPMX's sake, and I hope for the industry's sake, that they kind of look at some of the issues and some of the ways that previous standards, including AVB, went wrong, and they solved some of those. So, anyhow, I think we need a living legend to lead us, is what I think.
You're here.
I'll follow you, Justin.
Y'all don't follow me. I don't know where I'm going half the time, man. This is rough.
Maybe that's the AV world's problem. Nobody can lead.
Wow, that's a woo!
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's right. I mean,
She's right. She just dropped it. It's like, peace out.
That's a whole nother topic we could get into.
Well, we got 5 minutes left. We ain't doing the other story. We got 5 minutes left. Knock yourselves out.
we have people in our industry who have waved this flag among every other flag in the world. And they've been doing it for years. Like, call it even a decade, right? And it's not because they like to hear themselves talk. It's because these people have seen that there is a gap. And some of these people have even pointed out and said, this is going to happen at some point in time, and we're seeing it today, right? We've reached critical mass in some areas, not in all of them. Not in all of them. I mean, there are some areas in which we're starting to see growth, right? At WebEx1 a couple weeks ago, there was a great, G2 Patel gave a great introduction on AI and talking about how even Cisco is going to start looking at APIs and opening those up and taking down the walls.
Which is huge, by the way.
They're huge. We're starting to see traction.
Yeah.
But I'm confused as to what it's going to take as a catalyst moment to make this work, right? Because end users, arguably people who write the checks that keep the industry in business, have had these conversations for a long while. Dawn has brought it up a number of times on other shows I've been on with Dawn, right? This is not new, right? This should not be like the existential discussion of is a hot dog a sandwich or a taco, right? It really should be something that we've already taken up and moved forward at this point in time, and we haven't. And honestly, as everyone has alluded to at this point in time, as Tim has said very bluntly, we can't get out of our own way in a lot of cases. It's a huge gap of we've always done it this way. AV is rock and roll, punk rock, insert your idiom here, and we're going to do it this way. And unfortunately, it's going to hold us back.
I'm going to lay something down that I don't think I've said on the show yet. It's mostly to do with residential, but something Shareth just mentioned a few minutes ago, and that is the rise of streaming and what the consumer side is doing and how that's going to bleed over into the pro side. I want you to take a look at the prevalence or the market saturation of video distribution inside the residential market. Okay, 10 years ago, it was absolutely huge. Right, you didn't do a job halfway decent unless you were doing audio and video distribution, right? And eventually that kind of led into AV over IP, which was fantastic, right? Lots of really great systems. If you're doing any sort of AV distribution in somebody's home today, it's an anomaly. Why? Because the consumer industry figured out how to send video straight to the display, cutting out our entire industry. And what Shareth just said is they're looking at it. So I am not a manufacturer, nor do I play one on TV, but y'all better get in gear. That's all I got.
Yeah. Well, and Tim, we talked about this like a decade ago. I was still an integrator, so it's more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
We talked about the fact that, Resi was driving where it used to be commercial drove and people wanted that at home. Now it's, I do this at home. Why can't I do this in my boardroom, in my meeting room, in my training room, in my classroom? That and the whole disparity between, and this will tell you how old this conversation is. We had the conversation that, wow, why are, at the same time that we're pushing for 1080p, we're watching YouTube videos that are this big with this resolution. Well, now we're so far past 1080p, we're on 4K, 8K. We're still in the same disparity. We're still being led by the residential, by the consumer world, and by the streamers. And I love them to death. David Maldo, that we've had on the show a few times. OBS. I didn't know that was a thing. That did not come from our industry. And when I was first on the podcast or on the show here with him, when I first came on the show with him and learned about that,
it's full on open
like,
source.
Are you kidding me? So we are losing this war, people. And if you don't get off your duffs and get together and figure it out, we're all going to be out of work, or we're all going to be working in IT or Resi. I mean, there's nothing else to say.
There's a quote I put up today from a newsletter. I heard influence without authority is a critical skill, and I think every one of us that kind of, we're like preaching to the choir almost. Yeah. All of us needs to start influencing up and talking about it. And when I talk about it in spaces, sometimes I get the, Shareth, what are you even talking about right now? And I'm like, look at the numbers and the data, people. I'm not talking out of my,
I've told Tim in the past, I feel like Cassandra on the cliffs, spewing prophecy to the world that nobody believes until it comes true.
And the thing is, COVID made this even more of a thing.
100%.
Right? Because back in 2012, when my board members and whatnot were enamored with stuff they saw on like Iron Man and whatnot, and they wanted to display Tony Stark had in his office and their office, and I could whiff that off. I mean, now it's like they're going home and asking me why it's so difficult to get, in Shareth's case, video and data from A to B, because at my house I can literally use my my device and it does it all for me.
Yep.
Right? And COVID made that even more of a cornerstone, a hallmark of the ease of AV, because it was required. We had to do that. But then again, we kind of let the genie out of the bottle at that point in time, because they realized the secret sauce to this entire industry is us. It's not the technology. It's not the displays we hang on the walls. It's not the cameras. It's not the protocol we use. It's us. It's our trademark that we use to deliver this service. And that's why the whole IT thing is so important, because we can build this into something that can be dual wielded, to where we can actually deliver a service and do so in a standard that everyone can grab onto. And at that point in time, it's even more of us, like Shareth said, talking about influence. That is what makes the AV industry special. Yeah. It's not the box on the wall, it's the person who touched it.
Said it for years. Nobody cares about your gray box or your gray box.
Nope. They care about you.
Yes.
Remember, Justin, I'll follow you. I will follow you.
We will follow you. Our AV Living. All right, that'll do it. Dawn Mead, thank you, ma'am. How do people connect with you?
Folks can find me all over the internet, either at AVDawn or Dawn Meade, Meade, just like General George.
Right, Sharath. How do people connect with you and Jabra? She said that 1,000 times in the last 10 years, and it still cracks me up. I don't know why. Sharath, how do people connect with you or Jabra?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or TikTok, or the 3 platforms I've been actively on these days. Or if you're ever in New Jersey, hit me up.
You should follow Sharath on TikTok because of his daughter and his dog. That's all I'm going to say. Both are equally cute. Mr. Watts, Mr. Living Legend, how do people connect with you? And I'll just make Mitchell put a link to the Living Legend article.
On the Twitters, the Facebooks, I think it's still called Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere. I am at Paladin Machina, which is my way of saying Tech Knight like Tron because I fight for the user. You can find me all across the web there.
All right, very good. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me anywhere. Although the Bears did not lose this last week, so you can find me on social platforms. If you want to see what I write, primarily not about AV, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I have quite literally been around the world the last month, so if you missed me at IBC or CFX, you can catch me this week in Chicago at the very freaking first AV user group meeting in Chi-Town. Thank you very much. Very excited about this. Not quite to St. Louis, but we're getting close. So that is October 22nd. I'll be hanging out with my buddy Erica Carroll and a whole lot of really great Chicago end users. If you are watching this on YouTube and you're tired of listening to my watching my face, you can go subscribe to AVWeek Podcast wherever you get your podcast. If you're listening to us and you want to know what a living legend looks like, you can go watch us on YouTube. Either way, go the opposite direction. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.